And we are live. Well, welcome. So, my name is Jeremy, the alien scientist, and I've been doing physics research into this since I graduated high school. Grew up on Bob Lazar in the 1990s and super interested in, US government conspiracies and reverse engineering programs, especially anything related to UFOs, physics, or technology. And I was wicked huge into the Manhattan Project in high school. Did a big report on it. But I did a lot of research into physics and science, and I have been for a long time. And want to talk about what's going on with UFOs right now. It's crazy what's going on with UFOs right now. I went down to my local news station and tried talking to them today, and I sat there for over an hour and nobody cared. Nobody wanted to talk to me. And this guy showed up and he said, hey, dude, who are you here to see? You need to make an appointment, right? I said, dude, what if I was an intelligence source with some real deep inside scoop on some real deep dig information? Like, what if I was legit like that person? And you guys told me I needed an appointment, and I had more intel and more information than anyone else you've ever interviewed on this channel before. And the guy had nothing to say to me. He just said, well, I don't know. You just, if you need to have an interview, if you don't have an appointment, then you don't get on, you don't get in, and no one cares to see you. And I've written to my local Fox News station many times. It's just a shame. I'm going to write to them a couple more times again today, and let them know that, hey, there's 38 studies that the military's secret UFO program, this ATIP program, did scientific research into UFOs and funded a whole bunch of crazy programs. And of course, what gets highlighted in the mainstream media and in, even in debunker channels too, especially the debunker channels, love to harp on this stuff. And it really shows, who's in it for the ridicule and for the science versus the science, and really just trying to learn from it all. I won't mention any channels' names, but because those channels have covered my research and attributed that research to other channels and not mentioned my channel's name. So you know who you are if you're watching, Mr. I won't mention your name, but this FOIA by Stephen Aftergood revealed a interesting study of 38 subjects, and I talk about the research who these researchers were, their names. I pay close attention to these types of things because these are called bibliographies. And they kind of teach you in writing in college and in school about these things called bibliographies. And I know that there's a lot of you out there that do UFO research. Not him, not you. There's a lot of people out there that do like UFO research and get on huge channels with millions of views and are well known in the community, and they make claims to have all these in sources, and then it comes out on all these other countries, mainstream journalists who are reporting on this stuff. They do spotlights on this stuff, and they focus on these researchers because they're in the mainstream, and they give them interviews and an audience and stuff. And I thought that was super interesting, because this is someone that they back up and claim that this man has all these insider sources and all these inside intel. And I noticed he's wearing a different Rolex than he was wearing on the Joe Rogan show. And I just want to say, like, I would never waste my money on watches or flashy jewelry or things like that. If I had that kind of money, all that money gets invested into scientific equipment, and lab resources, and building the network, and building the channel, for what I've been trying to build for almost 20 years now. And I started this Alien Scientist channel in 2009, and I've gotten to 100,000 subscribers organically through producing high quality research to the best of my level. And we've invested in a number of technologies, currently involved with this alt propulsion group of excellent, amazing people who come from all over to share information, from, daringly to share information. And we've built this community up from the grassroots as an information sharing community. We've invited people like Bob Lazar and others who claim to have, David Adair has been invited. A number of people have been invited to APEC to share their information, who have already, been well established and known in the UFO community. A number of those people have stepped up to the plate and really delivered on information and inside research. And this community that we've brought together has really brought the focus on. And we really just opened a pipeline of information from the scientific alternate research community, a lot of which has been secretly funded by DARPA and continues to be secretly funded through, um, DARPA related projects and money and stuff. I know there's people that have joined the group, been picked up, and then vanished from the group quickly. Um, I've seen that happen, and it's a pleasure to have those of you who stick around to stay talking and to stay sharing information, and sharing ideas that further the physics community's window into this world of amazing technology and research that is opening up within ufology. And I thank all the channels out there that promote this type of research and promote this openness, and the ones that don't just claim to have all these inside sources and hoodwink reporters from other countries. Seasoned, people that I really respect and like to from my conversations on the phone with. And I was appreciative that, Ross Coolhart knew enough to know that he wanted some information on this Amy Eskridge case, and wanted to see what I had on it, and reached out to me on I wonder why he reached out to me on the Amy Eskridge thing. It seems kind of weird, because she was one of the people that approached me and tried to convince me of this super secret space program stuff, and that she was being followed by these time travel people, and that it was her time travel self in the future that kept coming back and doing all these things to interfere with her life. And when things would go wrong, or something would be weird that she couldn't explain in her life, she would explain it in terms of this time travel phenomenon, which I really find is the weirdest thing that I've ever heard described in physics from, scientists and people who talk about the physics of UFOs and stuff. So I love that. I love that we're getting into this whole idea of time travel. Time travel, I've always thought, a lot of people think is super cool, right? Time travel is awesome. It's been applauded in a lot of documentary films and stuff. But, you ever notice that none of the films or documentaries that have time travel involved ever really, make sense? And it's just weird that, that there are certain researchers that promote this time travel stuff. And I'd love to see evidence for it. Still don't believe in it, because, the fabric of reality, I believe, is woven, event upon event as we proceed into the future, and that there are irreversible events, that can't be reversed in time, like eggs breaking, glasses breaking, things like that. Entropy always moves in one direction to a more disordered state. Even though we can order certain things in one environment, it ends up creating more disorder in the long run somewhere else. So, or more trash or more waste or something else somewhere else. So it's an interesting way that the universe works, and that people are becoming aware of that kind of stuff. But to think that these UFOs, the video was released by Elizondo, and of course we have the Pentagon files on that, and I'll post those. I really should have those ready, and I meant to have those ready. The Pentagon files that were released in relation to this, you can find on Who is Lou, the website, um, and there's a whole. So if you look up Who is Lou documentary, right? Who is Lou documentary? Because we all know UFOs, modern ufology is now Louufology. It's been taken over by this To the Stars Academy, and they tried to point Tom DeLonge. This rock star is the head of it. Realized that he was not quite the right guy for the job, and he kind of faded out of the limelight. And they put this Corbell fellow in place. And these sort of scoundrels have been messing up the UFO file for the past 4 years, since 2018, when they first appeared on the scene with the techno scam known as TTSA, which promised people all this disclosure and technology. And we had to really dig for that information through a lot of the scientists who weren't mentioned, weren't highlighted. And instead, what got highlighted in the mainstream and in a lot of channels was Jeremy Corbell and Bob Lazar. And that turned into this spiral of misinformation and disinformation that it takes literally hours to sort out. The real technical stuff, I mean, there's a number of crap studies that were involved in this, but let's just play it. If we just can sort this out and distill all the best information off the top of it, from coming from someone who's a physicist and has studied the science and talked to a lot of the people involved in this, there are a number of these studies which are important. Invisibility and cloaking technology, transversible wormhole. Although I don't know that Ulf Lenhart is the sole proprietor of all the research that was done into this, because this thing does not start with Ulf Lenhart and St. Andrews and Penrose and the 90s and all this invisibility research. The story of this goes way back, and I document it in my UAP technical research report that I'm going to give again. I gave at Tesla Tech recently, and in Albuquerque, New Mexico, as the opening speaker. And I'm going to be giving another talk on with an updated and more in-depth version that's detailed more towards the business-oriented community of scientists and technical experts who people, investors really from Silicon Valley that are interested in, Silicon Valley, that are interested in the technologies that are coming out of the UFO program and of the technologies that have been declassified in the past few years. And a number of these are, spintronics was another one that I really want to talk about, and metallic glass, especially spin glasses, spin glasses aren't explicitly mentioned in this this one FOIA disclosure, but if you dig into this report, if you look up this metallic glasses and the work of Dr. Hoofnagel, and I actually found an expert in metallic glasses who happens to be another friend of mine who's a UFO researcher. It's a family member of his, and I won't mention that person's name, that scientist, but I'm still trying to get an interview with that scientist who's an expert on metallic glass. Super interesting subject, and I really want to talk about spin glasses and spintronics in the upcoming push for what we're trying to do next with our own experiments here on this channel, and what I think is the way forward in all this, because I think there's a lot of people trying interesting things, and I want to encourage them to try interesting things and to accept the encouragement and the criticisms of the group for how to record and analyze data and things of that nature. So we're all helping each other become better experimental physicists, experimental scientists, and also theoretical physicists and scientists by exploring new theories of propulsion and new theories of data collection and error minimization within the experiments, which has been a real serious problem with a lot of false positives that have been reported throughout the years. And things like ion wind and that and other effects of that have been reported that have been led to false positives, like the wires that connect them causing deflection, the wires actually pulling and causing the thing to move under control tests and stuff. So what we're looking for is real serious high level propulsion. And it's interesting that I think some of the most interesting guests and people that were there at Tesla Tech this year were people that didn't really talk too much or didn't say too much. They did say a little bit, but these guys, Kepler Aerospace, were there again, and they're doing some interesting work, to say the least. And they have careers open and contacts, and they're looking for investors and all that kind of stuff. So they're a real serious space company, and I'm happy to be friends with a number of the people on their team, including John Brandenburg and Tony Robertson, specifically, who've been longtime friends and really mentors in my way forward and learning my way out of the Bob Lazar crazy rabbit hole and into the world of real serious scientific academic level research into UAP physics and science. And I want to get into some of the real advanced stuff that I think is going on with this stuff. I was introduced to a phenomenon called the Dirac Sea a number of years ago, and how it relates to this whole theory of what's really going on with these craft. So these craft really function as these dielectric resonator antennas, and these waveguides and the optics of the skin coatings of these layered metamaterials of layered micron levels of magnesium and bismuth that are in apparently the terahertz active waveguides that were studied under this ATIP program. Apparently these materials can produce using spintronics. Spintronics is this whole idea that we're controlling down on the quantum level the Larmor frequency and the spin precession of all these atoms that are make up the lattice inside this metamaterial. And in the metamaterial, what can happen is that we can trap light and use that light to entangle numerous atomic states. And when you get all these states entangled, you get these really cool phenomena that occur, and these signatures of this highly entangled quantum matter that you can use for supercomputers, you can use for quantum computing. But on the level of a craft, the surface of the craft, you can literally fake the rest of the universe into thinking it's a single atom, a meta atom, and give the emulation of quantum physics, the rules of quantum physics, and you can literally tap into, on the visible spectrum, like wavelength level of quantum mechanics, you can tap in with this quantum computer and hack the source code of the entire universe, pretty much through it's basically the entire surface of your craft is this quantum entangled lattice. And that quantumly entangled lattice acts as a single a liquid light. It acts as liquid. You're literally pumping light into this thing, creating these what are called polariton condensates, and you're creating this massive liquid light or plasma around the craft, and you can literally use that plasma to warp the space-time dimensionally around the craft. And this is what we are ultimately working towards, I believe, within the physics community. This is, of course, July 22nd. There's a number of similar, and it's all, University of Hong Kong. It's a lot of Chinese research that's doing this cutting edge work in entanglement and quantum computing, which this is the key to how these UFOs work. The skin is a highly entangled optical quantum computer, photonic quantum computer that can literally take the light and around it, see it, and recompute it in real time to move itself and eliminate gravity. So what gravity is an emergent phenomenon. So we're dealing. I want people to go and watch David Chester's presentations that he's done. Okay, including the more recent interview that David Chester did with Tim Ventura, because this guy is one of the quantum gravity researchers who's really got it down. And there was another conference that we didn't get to go to. This conference right here, right? I'm still waiting for someone knows where we can post the discussions. If anyone recorded these things, these are 30-minute, 40-minute clips. If anyone can find out where these things are posted, this was a conference that happened in Vancouver. I tried to get Bernard to go because he's up in Canada, but I don't think he was able to go. At least, he didn't contact me saying that he went. But anyone who has a link to this, I want to get some of these speakers. Roger Penrose was apparently there, and a number of, I don't know if he was there or he spoke remotely, but very interesting keynote speakers on the keynote speaker day. Kip Thorne, Steinhardt. I mean, all the best quantum gravity people, but really David Chester nails it in so many ways. He's the one that's publicly available that we can hear, and he studies a lot of these guys, and he references a lot of these guys in his talk. And I'm not sure if he was actually the one who referenced me to that conference and told me about it, but thank you, David, if you are, and definitely need to talk to you more and get you back on in the future to talk more about this. But David has some really interesting approach to all this, like black holes, this whole idea of that we're open, you create this black hole of negative energy, and there might be other ways of tricking space-time into thinking different things are happening. So like to think that you're a black hole, or to think that you're a this other type of thing. And then ball lightning, I think has a relation to it too. In fact, there's a study that was done related to this. This is the one that gets highlighted, this crazy one with the dinosaurs and Einstein looking through the portal at the dinosaurs, supposedly creating this time portal and stuff. But there are some serious physics in some of those papers and these programs that we've delved into and talked about and referenced, including, Eric Davis was the one who wrote this patent. People may know him. He was involved with Hal Puthoff and this Earth Tech Foundation and stuff. But those are really familiar with Eric Davis's papers and some of the research that he's done. He's been kind enough to actually respond to my emails, but he's declined interviews because he's currently involved with a lot of classified research and government projects. He's one of the guys gets paid to talk, to talk to this stuff. And I guarantee he watches our APEC conference for information, but he doesn't talk much. And there's a lot of guys out there that are like that. And, that's cool. we're cool with that. When you are ready to talk, if you're ever ready to talk, we're here for you, and we respect what you do as well, Eric Davis. Hal Putoff has not been cool enough to respond to my emails or requests for interviews, and he was caught up with the TTSA thing for a while, and then I don't know what he's doing right now. He did a lot of work with Skinwalker Ranch and NIDS and stuff like that back in the day. So a lot of this stuff that's supposedly new and is coming out is just old, you know, it's old DARPA reject projects that like went nowhere, and they're put out there to highlight the more wacky stuff. And they were involved with a lot of wacky stuff on purpose to discredit a lot of the more legit research that these guys did, which is sad because that's how it's being played or portrayed. Now, if I think with Stephen Greenstreet, I don't know what Stephen Greenstreet is doing with his reporting in the UFO file, but he's got all these shows planned, and it's pretty much going over all the Skinwalker Ranch nonsense and how it relates to Hal Putoff and the backstory, which is really going to discredit a lot of this stuff, with some of the what I believe is some of the nonsense and some of the continuation of other projects like MK Ultra, Subproject 68, and the electronic warfare experimentation side of Project Rainbow, which was the CIA's experimentation project into studying the electromagnetic spectrum and mapping out the entire electromagnetic spectrum, creating those tables for which who had access to what frequency bands and whatnot, and classifying all those is under the whole basis of what the majority of what the NSA does, which is signals intelligence. So they monitor all these. They have these massive stations. The NSA has all the the one that was in Falcon and the Snowman down in Australia, Pine Gap, it's called. And they have all these listening stations. They're called the Elephant Room and the Elephant's Ear. There's all kinds of weird pseudonyms in the industry for what these places are called, but they're basically big listening stations, and they deal with signals intelligence, which is that whole electromagnetic spectrum and figuring out who's communicating and what kind of signals are being sent, and then they record all those signals, and then they save them for later decoding or whatever else. And it's a huge part of what the intelligence services do, including accept signals from space. A lot of them say that this whole SETI thing is kind of not looking in the right direction, that they were looking on this frequency spectrum, but that they were not looking in the right spectrum, and that there's this whole idea of this terahertz gap that has this whole spectrum in it. And terahertz gap is interesting. It's a gap in our technology, and the terahertz gap is super interesting because every single molecule has a signature in the terahertz spectrum, which can be used to identify it. So if you could build a terahertz scanner, you could literally build a scanner that would be like the alien, these people that describe being scanned by the alien technology, right? Where they say it like literally like looks through their whole body, and it's been in the sci-fi films where like the alien AI scans people and like takes a whole map of their entire body, a whole like physical map, and records it, which is crazy to think about, that they could like look down on the molecular and atomic level and literally scan you head to toe with these terahertz radiation lasers, and be able to completely scan you. And apparently they can be used for tractor beams and other things too, which is super interesting in terms of building flying saucers and propulsion systems, because if you can attenuate your antenna to this terahertz frequency, you can propel yourself through space-time. And apparently these terahertz waves create a signature that it dissipates really, really quickly in atmosphere. so it doesn't leave much of a signature behind of your propulsion system either, which is another thing I've learned recently. And you can basically produce these through the easiest way to produce these crazy frequencies is through band gap filters and these bosonic lasers or polariton lasers. So here's an interesting article: the rise of the bosonic laser. Two independent groups have concurrently reported the first bosonic lasers driven by electrical injection. The devices operate only at low temperatures and in a strong magnetic field. They represent an important step forward in the evolution of polariton-based optoelectronics. So now since then, right, since 2013, they're like, all right, well, we can create this with this thing, but it has to have these properties. So then they went and they took AI, and they're now doing AI to they're using artificial intelligence and these material science simulators, right? And there's all these research that's being done with this, and it goes back way before this, but you'll find that this is where it's all at right now. Is they're building AIs, and they want to build quantum computers using these spintronic, you know, highly entangled quantum computers of the future to build these AIs to develop new materials to build better, quantum computers and build better materials that can be adapted for these things. And so now they're getting past a gap, because I want to relate this all back to what we originally started on, was this whole UFOs and the reverse engineering project, right? What a lot of people say, it started back with we debunked a lot of the Corsos things. We've shown sources for the theoretical physics of Schottky and others related to him, Felix Bloch and others who led the pioneers this physics theory, the people that developed fiber optics and stuff, Roy Plunkett, the inventor of Teflon. The one that we didn't figure out was this nitinol wire and this memory and the shape retention alloys, which has this weird origin. When you really dig into it, you find out that there was this other subversion of subversion of Project Blue Book run by Battelle. So Project Blue Book was the U.S. Air Force's study into UFOs. And supposedly there was a whole separate Project Blue Book, which was related to these materials, which were recovered out at Roswell in 1947. And Project Blue Book ran from 1952 to 1969. And that's when Project Blue Book ended and concluded its project. And interesting. So Howard C. Cross. This guy is the one who apparently led the top secret version of Project Blue Book. But I find it's interesting that the curious Dr. Cross, you won't find much on him except for a few sites and stuff. Really interesting fellow, but this UFO thing ended in 1969, which is curious. This whole nitinol wire study relates to this metallurgy project that was done by Battelle scientists for Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and were published in a report in the 1940s, where they showed how to analyze these materials. Battelle currently runs all of our national laboratories. If you look it up, Brookhaven National Labs, Idaho National Labs, Lawrence Livermore, Los Alamos, Oak Ridge, Pacific Northwest, National Biodefense Analysis and Countermeasures Center. They're all managed through Battelle. So all of our science is basically censored and run by one organization that dates back to this Roswell file. The CIA, acting head of the CIA, talked a little bit about this. I've identified a number of researchers who I think were involved with the real MJ-12, if there was a group of scientists hired to study these materials and the stuff, including John von Neumann, who was one of the smartest people who worked on the Manhattan Project. And John von Neumann published a paper on von Neumann machines in 1949. He devised them. Apparently, no one ever thought of self-replicating automata from space that could, space probes that could land here, make copies of themselves, and then leave and go and continue to colonize wherever. And he's the first person to think about that and write a paper on it right after Roswell. So I thought that was super interesting. Trying to trace back these memory metals that were reported at Roswell, and I'm going to add a slide in here too about Mylar because I think it's super important. And because Mylar really wasn't invented until the mid 1950s, so whatever that material was, that memory metal was not Mylar. I talk about some of these advanced materials and material alloys that are mentioned in the ATIP study and some of the research that I've done onto them and who came up with these ideas and where they came from. I found that it was interesting that Daniel Schechtman, the guy who discovered quasicrystals, did his postdoc at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base at the Aerospace Research Labs. I thought it was super interesting because quasicrystals are fascinating, and I've been told personally by an Area 51 insider who I knew that quasicrystals were how these things fly, how UFOs fly. That's a quote I can attribute to Edgar Fouché. You can look that up. Quasicrystals are, he talked about them in 1998 in a presentation he gave at IUFOC. You guys can look that up on my channel and check that out. I should make a clip really highlighting that because it's just super interesting that this new idea in science of these crystals that are hyperdimensional, they're actually 5-dimensional crystals which exist in our 3 dimensions. So if you wanted to have a crystal that could access these hypergeometries of space-time and resonate on a 5th-dimensional level, quasicrystals might be a good way to go with that. So I thought that they're super interesting. Again, a lot of backlash in the scientific community to these ideas, but nonetheless, we are pressing forward with these hopes and dreams, regardless of what the naysayers say. We have a lab, and we're actually working on replicating these materials, these layered bismuth and magnesium waveguides that were shown once. TTSA flashed them around, then they disappeared into this U.S. Army CRADA, and no one's heard anything about them ever since. And we've kind of gotten, this Jeremy Corbell version of disclosure in the public sphere and Bob Lazar ever since. And element 115 kind of replaced this whole idea of terahertz wave anti-gravity and space-time metric engineering that was being, talked about very quietly in certain scientific circles, but I believe needs to be spoken about much more publicly. And the whole physics of these terahertz optics and what they're going to unlock, some of the classified research that's been done around them. We know there's classified research because the OSI, Office of Special Investigations for the Air Force, raided a Wright State University researcher who was studying polariton condensates research at Wright-Patterson. And that research was somehow related to classified intelligence, but they said it was for, like his PhDs and stuff. His papers that I read said it was the structural terahertz imaging, for looking beneath paint layers, for analyzing aircraft hulls for damages or signatures of, rivets that were blown out. They could tell beneath the paint without, having to really inspect further. They could tell with these terahertz scanners that kind of see beneath. They have these, like I said, it's like these. You remember that movie Eraser, where they have the gun that they look through, like Arnold Schwarzenegger would look through that gun, and it would see through the buildings, and it would see people, and it would see objects, and it would see all the different things on all these different frequencies. because it could just look through and see all those spectrums. Well, that's kind of the technology that this is based on, and that's what they were working on. And that was what their future vision was in the 90s when they made that movie, believe it or not. So I talk about these beat frequencies and these, some wave mechanics. So people hear those wow, 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 or different things that you hear in waves, and what that actually looks like in a wave printout or a wave frequency and stuff. This is a spectrum allocation table for the United States. They're different in different countries and stuff, but these are the allocation tables that, divide up the electromagnetic frequency spectrum into, wavelengths that are you can use, you can't use, or used by, different organizations of the government or police or what have you. So very interesting how that breaks up from there. And the science of physics of antennas and signals intelligence gets really deep, especially when you get into encryption and some of the modern stuff they have out there. But it started in 1946 with this amazing discovery that was made by a brilliant physicist named Edward Mills Purcell, who discovered nuclear magnetic resonance, that atoms resonate and have this nuclear magnetic resonance, and also that the electrons have this spin property as well that contributes to this whole atomic puzzle. Perturbation theory and a lot of other great physics came out of that. But that sparked Project Rainbow, which was the CIA's 1958 mapping of the electromagnetic frequency spectrum, which involved John Archibald Wheeler, and possibly was related to not the fictional, but the more realistic explanation for what the Philadelphia experiment may have been. Of course, we talk about metamaterials or over the horizon antennas. I want to talk about 1969, when they ended this, because it's not in my presentation, but it is something that just came up because the Battelle rencontre happened in 1967. It was these lectures on mathematics and physics, and it was put on by John Archibald Wheeler and Bryce DeWitt, both of whom were members of this elite secret college, which studied UFOs for the U.S. military and worked on a lot of the theoretical physics and background engineering of the UFO stuff for the government, as two of the smartest, really smart guys that were really well informed and knew about this stuff. And when they came out with this lectures in mathematics and physics and talked about Lie algebras and Lie groups, and especially this E8 algebra and how it mapped out the theoretical physics that Garrett Lisi would only reveal like later in the early 2000s, was the first person to really talk about this whole group theory and the real deep quantum physics and how it's being done with AI and through computers, which a lot of that work we weren't able to do that on computers until recently. A lot of the work in 1960s, they gave up Project Blue Book in 1969, 2 years after this Battelle rencontre came out, because they realized that, their computers of the day, 1969, were never going to be able, it was just so impossible to think about the capabilities that we would be able to do this stuff, and how hard it would be, and how hard it was for them. Having worked from 1952 to 1969, think about all through the 50s and 60s, they worked on these classified programs with, Edward Mills Purcell and out of Area 51, all this missing history of what they worked on out there. There's a huge gap of that, and I guarantee you, a lot of it was to do with this, just trying to figure out the metals and the metallurgy and engineering of this, and that John Archibald Wheeler was one of the guys involved, Battelle, Cross, and some of these other guys like Craighead, I believe, were deeply involved in a lot of the deep science of the projects. But it was literally kept to only a small number of scientists. If this was if this program really did have access to UFO metals. And what they learned was probably, I guess they must have given up in 1969. That's my only guess, is that they thought that the computational power and that the ability to make these things was just way beyond what they would ever ever be able to do back in 1969. They must have just they closed down the program for a reason. And that's interesting because that they didn't really catch on until like 1976, which was like 9 years later, is when, the CIA really began fragmenting and compartmentalizing a lot of their main operations into these private groups. Like the NSA, started, instead of like actually having a headquarters and hiring people directly, they started, using Booz Allen Hamilton and some of these other organizations to recruit clandestinely into these organizations and stuff. So a lot of that kind of really happened in the late 1960s, as a lot of this stuff went underground. So there's a lot of questions about what they discovered and what happened when a lot of this stuff went underground. But essentially, they really had to give up because they couldn't figure out how to make these materials, or why make these materials, or why they even worked. Because we really didn't have the models of theoretical physics, and we really didn't have the computational power to be able to do this. But now that we have the computational power, there's a huge, huge effort on behalf of like Google AI and these other groups. Google AI is, the NSA, aka Google, is doing massive work on, advancing AI for everyone. But they're doing quantum supremacy. So they're programming all the laws of quantum physics into these AIs and teaching. They have literally Leonard Susskind. If you go and look it up on Leonard Susskind, Lex Fridman, right? So he was on Lex Fridman recently.
Following.
And on this interview, he talks about how he's been hired by Google. This is the top quantum computing scientist and top quantum scientist. He's the chair of physics at Stanford University. And one of my favorite physicists to listen to has been one of my, I've never spoken with him directly. I would love the chance to interview him, but I've watched so many of his lectures and his channel, and it was great watching him on here talk about the more recent work that he's doing with Google AI, where Google is literally building these AIs and he's their teacher. He's teaching them physics, and he's teaching the AI proper physics and how to theoretical physics, and helping program the AIs with theoretical physics so that they can then take these theoretical physics and our complete knowledge of the periodic table and all the elements, and build this whole construct, not just working with the conventional periodic table, but the periodic table with all the isotopes. So it's a much bigger periodic table if you include all the isotopes, and you can do way more in the physical constructs of what AI could be sitting there and thinking. It's super stupid, and it's super, super smart and intelligent on a whole nother level. It can just sit there and try billions and billions of combinations until they say, well, this isotope of antimony and combined with this isotope of lead for some reason creates this awesome effect. And if we use that matter in conjunction with this, we can create these super materials that do exactly what we need you to do. And whatever you ask the AI to, create, and it's virtual world, you can basically on demand do this, and this is what they're doing. And Lenny Susskind, very credible guy on a very credible podcast, talking very openly about what Google's paying him to do now. And I thought that was just wow, that was mind blowing. When you look back at how far we've come from learning all this stuff. So another thing I've initiative I want to think and run by people is this, and I only brought it up because I clicked on it. But I want to put a flyer up at all the VA hospitals looking for people, if there were these crash recovery teams that people are talking about within the military, then these guys have to be, old and dying. There has to be people who are involved in one generation, because every generation goes through a generation. They have to hire new people. That's how everything works. This is the world. So people get old and they die. So the people that have worked on these projects in the military are going to be old and dying, like Ed Fouché was. And Ed Fouché used to always go to the Veterans Hospital. He used to go to the VA hospital. And I think that's super important, because you got to think of how many of these guys that worked on top secret programs were involved in something, are old now, dying of maybe what they handled or were involved with, dying of cancers or other ailments caused by whatever they were exposed to. And they're going to VA hospitals for treatment. And there's the catch-22. All right. So you have to find these guys, because some of them rely on that hospital help to stay alive. And if they go and speak out, they'll lose their pension, they'll lose their benefits, and they might even lose their access to the VA hospital, which is the difficulty in recruiting people here. But you might bank on that one miracle guy, like that anonymous fellow who, Corbell claims to have all these, super awesome inside sources. Well, anonymous CIA director, right? Where's that video, dude? Where's the video with the anonymous guy that Corbell put out years ago? You can't even find it anymore, because it's like one of his more shameful alleged sources, fake sources that he's used as his fake insiders. But the anonymous guy was this, hey, my name is blah, 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 and I worked out at Roswell, and I was brought out to the aliens. And well, that was Corbell that brought you that video, if anyone remembers that from a few years back, and you can't find it now, which is funny. But that whole scene was another. I don't even know where I was going with that. I'm sorry for mentioning that guy. It's just a waste of time, even bringing him up. But anyways, that guy was allegedly, I brought him up because he was this guy that was allegedly at this deathbed confession. He's dying on his deathbed, and then he made this confession. So the reality is that these people must exist out there, that there must be these old guys on their deathbed ready to give these deathbed confessions, and that maybe we can reach them if we reach out to the VA hospitals and post around the VA hospitals as active UFO researchers with a flyer, saying that, hey, there's 32 other crash sites that were reported in Roswell since 1947. Were you involved in one? And if you'd like to come forward, now's the time. I don't know, man. Maybe we can find some people if this is a real thing, because we got, Ross Coolhart and Jeremy Corbell saying that, Bob Lazar is a real deal, and there's a hangar out there with 9 of these flying saucers in it out at S4 at a secret underground subsection of Area 51, and that it's full of these flying saucers, and they're working on alien technology out there. And he lets Corbell have the floor with that. Talks to Gary Nolan, who's a really interesting guy. I got to talk to Gary Nolan, and I don't want to go into this too much, but definitely go back and watch this segment. The Corbell part, we've already been down that rabbit hole and exhausted all his sources of intelligence. Really, there's nothing there as far as I'm aware. If anyone has anything that Corbell has that's of intelligence or actionable intelligence value that we need to look into, please bring it to my attention, because I'm not aware that he's brought us any closer to the truth. And in fact, he's just muddied the water and obscured the subject more, as far as I can see. But yeah, definitely go to this part around 36 minutes where he interviews Gary Nolan, and check out Gary Nolan. Gary Nolan's the best of all the people that have come out of this recent group, the post 2014, I guess you call it the post 2014 gamut of UFO noobs that have come out since 2014 that have attempted to do justice to the subject. Ross, it's great. He's doing good research. It's just, dude, we all get sucked down these rabbit holes, dude. Like anyone who gets into ufology is going to get sucked down the rabbit holes. And unless you've been down those rabbit holes for 10 years, like some of my friends have, and I have, you're not going to know your way out, and you're going to get sucked in. You're going to get hoodwinked, and you're going to get fooled. It's going to happen. All right. And even the best researchers, the best journalists out there with the most integrity are going to fall victim to some of this stuff. So we can't let that drag us down. We can't let that hinder us. You're doing amazing work. You're doing amazing research. I encourage all the people out there that are pushing the UFO disclosure envelope forward, but we have so much more to learn in terms of science and technology. And this is the real nuts and bolts guts of it. I'm glad you covered the Corbell stuff. I mean, he's really just pathetic in terms of what you cover right after you get rid of him, because this Gary Nolan stuff makes up for it 100%. Knockout, interesting stuff there. Again, Gary Nolan doesn't dive deep into all the science research, these other 38 studies, these ATIP studies, and the real quantum physics and the whole idea of this quantum computing, that the skins of these craft are made of these metallic spin glasses, and that they're quantumly entangled optical quantum computers that are able to warp the space-time fabric around them through exploitation of the quantum computing code, the very fabric of the universe. And there's ways to do that, and there's ways to do that and we're going to figure it out. We're going to publish it, and we're going to get the scientists on to talk about it if they can. And that's kind of the goal here at this disclosure project, and really talking about the core science, and also digging into, the more popular case, whatever people want us to dig into. If it's related to science and you want to know about it, we're going to really get into it in detail. And I'm putting this report together for, I'm going to add a lot to this in the next couple days or weeks before this upcoming conference, because this is super important. And I think there's a lot of these technologies that can be applied with cross applications to build some really interesting craft of the future, or at least places to do experiments for this type of stuff. But yeah, the AI is doing incredible work right now. If you go and just look up what AI is doing with material science, and it's just amazing, because we're able to create these materials that are the future materials, and the AI is figuring out why the aliens have done what they have done with these layered metamaterials. But yeah, we have some interesting things coming up. I want to I gotta get Mark on and some other people on. If anyone's watching the StreamYard link, I'm gonna post it, and we got 300 people watching. This is amazing, dude. This is great, dude. 300 people watching live. This is like, we haven't had this in a while, and I think it's because we have such good content, and we're getting so close to the real truth of what's going on within these technologies. We've got a whole history, a rich history that's sourceable with realistic, real intelligence, real physics, real science, and technology that people can look up and dig into and learn about, that have been related to a lot of the UFO file and government study into these projects. Man, it's I'm going to fix that last slide there. But yeah, the Battelle thing is super important, because Battelle was working with John Wheeler. They were working with Bryce Dewitt. They were working with the scientists who were the metallurgists on the project with this. And Battelle was instrumental in this sub-secret section of Project Blue Book, which was not made public and was closed down 2 years after this Lectures in Mathematics and Physics came out, where they showed all this advanced group theory stuff and this idea of, what the future was. And I think that they shut it down shortly after that for whatever reason. I'm not sure. But what happened to that UFO file and where it went, and where the technologies research went? 1958 was the start of Project Rainbow, and I think that concluded. That went on quite a ways, and at Area 51, it was the whole sub-secret stealth project, and that developed a lot of metamaterials before metamaterials were really understood theoretically in the mainstream. They were already working on and developing those types of materials, which I thought was super interesting. Hey, we're getting some people involved coming here now. I don't want to bring vibrational tactician in until you show me a video and prove you're not oh my God, we had a mistake on the other time, like it was a different kitty someone was petting. But hey, what's up, architect Tom?
Hey, I'm at the new location, lost about half my stuff, so that's about all that's up.
Oh God, we needed like a mecca for our our whole scientific community. I want to build in our own institute, or maybe be placed in charge of a new institute for studying this stuff, where we can just bring everyone to work on this.
So actually a cat that showed up out of nowhere underneath the car, and I think a cousin of his showed up like a couple days later, because she's quite a bit younger, but she still seems like she's from the same people, same group of cats that they basically are not getting fixed, and every now and then one of their kittens ends up over here. Kind of funny, because he just lost a cat that looks almost exactly like him, like a week before this one showed up, that had been here for about a year, that also showed up out of the blue in his woodshed outside. Not sure what happened. Probably like a blood clot or something took it. It's
weird.
Pretty disheartening, because it was a super mellow cat, man.
So you don't have the what are you working on in your lab, or what you downsized? So what do you could get rid of a bunch of stuff? Are you working on anything cool? What's going
on? I'm still trying to set things up, man. I'm in an even smaller space indoors, and I've got a lot bigger space outdoors, because there's no landlady that's going to go, oh my God, I'm going to kick you out. You're putting together a building outside. It's like, that's what people do. They go to the hardware store and they buy a building, they put it outside and put stuff in it. Like, what the heck? She just apparently didn't like me for some reason, because I wouldn't put up with her nonsense.
So, not to get distracted, man, I want to know what you guys think of my theory that they kind of gave up on the reverse engineering project in '69, and that was kind of like '67. They kind of like concluded that we're not going to really get anywhere until we have more advanced computers and AI and other things, So I think
there's more to it than that. I think actually they probably realized they just didn't have the scientific technology and development to understand what they were looking at. It'd be like basically somebody who's no understanding of fire trying to figure out how to reverse engineer a glass bottle.
Yeah.
So wait and develop more technology, and it's the thing, the technology.
That's what I think they did. I think they shelved it. I think they tried it until '69 when they closed Project Blue Book, and that's when they said, we're going to shelve this away, and we're not going to show it to anyone. We're just going to pretend it doesn't exist, and we're just going to let technology progress. And now I think what's going on with this whole thing is I think they're trying to rewrite the UFO file to really erase a lot of that deep history and change the terminology and a lot of the other things. I don't know. I kind of subscribe to that a lot, but maybe I'm just
so CNC became computer numerical control of manufacturing machines, that really blossomed in the 80s and 90s, and even over the last like 2 decades, each decade you see a radical improvement in machining. And then
Yeah.
since the 90s, computing and doing the computational modeling of some of these elements and the structures, I think that all really took or it got another dimension to it, or became more sophisticated throughout the 80s and 90s. So we
Yeah, I
have,
was gonna say the advancement wasn't in computer assisted control, but rather the computer assisted development.
right,
The CAD side rather than the CAM side, because they were doing stuff using like look up a force slide.
yeah,
It was an adjustable thing that just automatically reproduce something over and over, and they make millions of parts every month with one machine that they assemble like tens of entire Walmarts with that one machine's output. So, but being able to basically design something that would on the computer that you can then use that code to control the machine. Now we're really starting to cook with gas, as they say. You
but
know.
we haven't had the technology, like the ability to compute. I mean, it started in the 80s. Like, I was a kid up in Los Alamos in the 80s, and there were, I got introduced to computers. The first computer I was ever sat down in front of was an Apple, the old school one with the grayscale
Like
thing.
an
But
Apple IIe
yeah,
monochrome.
but this was Los Alamos in the 80s, right? I don't know. I was like 10, maybe.
Yeah. Well, if you're a Los Alamos scientist who actually, worked on classified projects like Bob Lazar said, yeah, I don't think you would go and set up CCTV cameras in a brothel and get convicted of pandering, like Bob Lazar did.
It was a dark
Um,
time of the soul, man. After he got fired from Area 51 and had his life
right.
cleared out,
Oh, the
dark time of the
dino.
soul.
Yes, of course. But yes, there's been a couple questions I wanted to address. The Alexei
Chikrakov.
Cherkikov, Charlie C is still working on that, I believe. I'm not sure. We don't think that we've had null results on everything we've tried so far, and a lot of different videos we've seen put out. Mixing up a lot of different theories and different stuff. But so far, we haven't had any positive tests with any of this stuff. But yeah, that's the guy working on it. If you want to check him out, Charlie C, just type in Charlie C and Alexei Cherkikov, grab a flyer test experiment or something. You'll find his channel and you can check him out. He's doing the best research on it out there right now. Not super interested in it. I've already explained that I think it's like some kind of camera hoax or trick that he's got it held up somehow or rigged, and there's other explanations for what's going on there. Um, there's a number of people like this who've claimed, gravity or free energy or anti-gravity inventions and stuff like that in the past. One of the opening comments was about, Victor Schauberger. People have heard about this guy, and there's this whole documentary that somebody made about saying that, he invented the log flume and did all this. But I looked that up. It was actually this guy, James Haynes, in 1868, who first built the V-shaped log flume because the square-shaped flumes were getting jammed up. But I don't know. This is a whole different principle of water mechanics of logs riding, water flumes
Well, with
down
the
mountainside.
Schauberger stuff, he figured out that water was most dense at 39 degrees Fahrenheit. What was that, 4 degrees Celsius? So he developed these like holding ponds in the flume system in order to keep the water at 39 degrees.
Yeah.
That's what I got out of studying his stuff. But and then he really got into the fact that water spirals, and the way to control erosion on the banks is not by building up the banks, but by getting into that spiral in the middle of the river and learning to direct that energy.
We had some interesting theories on how propellers should be designed, and some of that's turning out to be, true later. With
grander water. Yeah, we had a
supercavitation, because supercavitation is one thing that eats up a lot of propellers, and it occurs in propeller systems where they try to they engineer these propellers to maximize the release velocity at which the water is deflected off the propeller blade. They want to maximize that velocity at which the water flows off that blade. What happens is it creates this if it goes so fast, they create such a velocity of this water that it creates this supercavitation effect on the backside of the propeller, which actually
Lou Elizondo talked about it at the Roswell Festival this year, and it's these are very large torpedoes, and they're blowing an air bubble in front of them. It's what you can sort of see in that bullet picture, but the cavitation's coming out of the front, so they're blowing like it's a reverse jet engine. They create an air pocket in front of it, and then they're just flying underwater at like hundreds of knots. Versus, it's nearly Mach 1 underwater is what Lou was dropping. There you see like the tip with the
that's the tip.
So it's creating a bubble in front of it, and it's an underwater missile. So supercavitation isn't about the props. That's what our tech is using. So these like the giant nuclear missile that there's a new submarine that Russia put out this summer, and it's carrying a couple of these like Tsar Bomba underwater nuclear torpedoes, and they're the size of a school bus, and they're just, they fly underwater. Yeah. So it's a very scary weapon.
Yeah, it's a very scary thing when they think, oh, well, ICBMs, they can shoot them out of the sky. They've been detected. We had the Star Wars program, the Strategic Defense Initiative in the 80s under Reagan.
Water nuke.
But not these things. These are underwater, and they can go supersonic underwater by supercavitating the air in front of them. And I would hate to be a dolphin anywhere near one of these. Or a whale or a fish, a school of fish. Yeah,
I was say thinking about an aircraft flying by you at like Mach 3, and you're only like say 100 feet from a wingtip that would have on your open ears. Now think of something even more air being basically compressed like that on the ears of a dolphin. Jeez.
Dang.
All the artwork is very misleading. There was only one news bite this summer about that very large submarine, but the torpedoes that are doing the supercavitating effect are like, think van life, or they're the size of a school bus. So the nuclear package is, I don't know. I'd have to go down to Albuquerque and start networking. But think Tsar Bomba at all the way up at level 10. And it's just a large explosion underwater. And next thing you know, all of like the Los Angeles basin is wiped out by a tsunami. That would be like a multi-trillion-dollar economic, yeah, it's scary. Or like the news brief, the news from out of Russia, where they said they could basically swamp all of the UK. They were talking about this supercavitating underwater nuclear bomb.
Wow.
Anyway.
Well, I don't know, man. Our streams numbers seem to be dropping. They might be censoring this kind of talk and stuff. We don't want to get too classified, man. But we're on the science discovery process of learning a lot about some other things about how UFOs fly. So some of these UFOs might be these things going underwater, like that using these technologies. I don't know. Maybe they're using an advanced form of these technologies. Maybe it was our opponents testing out early primitive forms of these things. Who knows? It's kind of interesting.
Well, if you're listening to the tone of the discussion in DC with Congress, they're ruling out man-made from the definition of like UFO, USO.
Are these the same group of people that are basically talking about using a nuclear bomb to blow up olivine into the atmosphere to sequester CO2?
No.
We're going to fight climate change with more climate change.
I was talking about the tone of declassification of this, and like Congress, the media that I'm getting off of my social media feeds is saying that they're leaning towards ruling out man-made objects on certain. I guess the full videos from the F-18 Hornets have been shown in select committees and such. So they're saying no, the evidence that they've been given in the classified meetings makes it apparent that they're not man-made objects. Internally it's just a game. It's a horse and pony show or dog and pony show.
Yeah, and that's why I think they're trying to get Bob Lazar on there to testify so they can discredit the UFO file and just run it in circles and lead it nowhere. They're trying to get, I don't know, that's my theory anyway. Hey,
I have a feeling they probably have a delicate balance of trying to basically like keep the stuff sequestered information wise, but still keep the money flowing in.
The Air Force has to lie about it because they're flying that TR-3B platform, and that's the National Reconnaissance.
I want to bring Steve on, but he's got his sound playing in the background, so I'm not going to bring him on until he gets that other sound. I'm hearing the echo, Steve.
Done. I took it off. I didn't know if you could hear me or not.
What's up, man? You're a newcomer. I want to give some new people a chance to ask some questions and come on here.
Yeah, I'm a newcomer.
Oh no, he got cut off. I swear, Steve, come back, please, man. I don't know what happened to you. Dang it. Dr. Hongo, I'm gonna bring you on, man. Yeah, that's your first name. Just making sure it's you. Hey, I don't know what happened there, man.
No, I went back and messed it up a little bit. But no, I've been a fan of yours for a long time. Man, I was so interested in the stuff you were saying about the Bob Lazar, going back to like, what was it? The Desert Blast, and how that's probably how
that was how United Nuclear got started, right? He got his whole company, United Nuclear. It started with Desert Blast, man. The guy,
right? He would make his own fireworks, but that's probably how him and I found a video of man, I'm kind of nervous, so my mind's blank. What's the reporter in Vegas?
George Knapp.
Yeah, Knapp. So like that's probably how Knapp got introduced to them doing doing reports on this Desert Blast thing, and him driving around in his rocket powered his rocket powered little car or whatever.
Yeah.
But him and Gene Huff, you know what I think? My theory about Gene Huff, he's a failed screenwriter. I think that he had this kind of written out as a movie. And then, it didn't work out. And when he got hooked up with John Lear, who I think John Lear is a CIA disinformation agent, from the start, going back, considering he used to fly.
That's right. We're talking about
his dad was in those Bonson Labs videos. So the research that was going on into Thomas Townsend Brown and anti-gravity back in the day, his dad visited.
And that's something that's the real anti-gravity. I mean,
yeah, that was some of it. I mean, there's a lot of compartmentalized other projects and stuff.
All the research that could have been done.
But that was
have you ever looked into I don't remember his name. He died.
I think that I don't know. I would like Gene Huff to tell the real story at some point. I think he wants to. Not sure. I've talked to him a couple of times off the record, and trying to get him to go on the record with something, to talk more about that time. Because he feels very slighted by Corbell. That Corbell, did the documentary on Lazar, but
kept him out of it.
Kept him out of the film. Didn't even mention John Lear. If you go on Extraordinary Beliefs, Corbell's website, he was supposed to do a whole documentary about John Lear. You know that? And he can no longer do that.
Oh no, I didn't know that. But are we? Can we cuss or?
Try not to. No.
Yeah, try not to.
Okay, I won't. Um, yeah, that Corbell guy is such a cheese factory, man. I can't stand that dude. I can't
That's
stand
his
anything he does.
website is Extraordinary Beliefs, dude. He's a believer, and he wants to,
He's a money. He wants to jump
Good
on
background
that
traffic.
southern.
That was a composite shot, but that's nice. I've worked up in Aspen. I've been around politicians, and you don't know a person until you've met them face to face and had like a drink or a handshake. Be
This
it
guy blocked me because
water.
he wouldn't debate me on the Bob Lazar stuff.
Yeah.
So this is the anonymous interview. It's still up on his website. So this is the anonymous interview. So you can't find that on YouTube anymore, because it's been debunked so much, because this guy claims to be this guy who worked out at Area 51, and this is like the kind of in special inside sources that Jeremy Corbell has and has brought out, and his who his other inside source was? John Lear.
Sorry, we're cross.
John Lear, who believes like there's
Men
people
live on
living
the
on the
sun.
sun.
Is
Yeah.
that
Stuff like
is that Bill Uhouse in the chair?
Which I think is all he puts all that stuff out there just to
One thing I must admit is I have not
anybody
seen
that's doing the type of research that you're doing, Jeremy. He wants to loop that. He wants to loop people like you in with people like that to just debunk the whole. It's really what I think it is, man.
was interesting.
I think a lot of this is
because these implants and stuff that this guy was pulling out of people and looking at, I thought were super interesting.
Yeah,
and stuff,
and they would like grow. They would grow into the
Jeremy and talk with Daryl Sims, the alien hunter guy. He has a whole case of these things, and some of them are like these implants. Like it's a thing.
they grow.
That's one good thing I think of all the stuff that he's ever covered. That's the one thing I think is like kind of interesting. Like that I can get into. The rest of it, I'm just like, this guy is
social engineering going on by little gray.
But yeah, but I want to know. I want to know what's going on. If this is Big Brother engineering these chips and implanting people,
no. These things are like nanotech, man. You
right.
They're
Daryl Sims, the alien hunter.
They get entangled with the nerves and stuff, like the
or they'll put them
the nerves and the tissue.
Yeah,
it's inoperable. Like there's a local lady here in my hometown, and she showed me her X-ray, and she has one behind her Achilles tendon it's like, that's pretty soft tissue, and it's this little round cylinder thing, and there's no effing way. She's like, I don't know. She showed me like a little triangle scar on her back. There's another guy. Showed me a little scoop. They took a flesh sample. He's got. I've met people from the Pueblo. There was video on Facebook that they got freaked out about, but it's here, and there's this glowing light right outside the house, and it's sunrise.
Dude. You got to admit that John Lear interviews on Art Bell were classic, and also John Lear on Mystery Wire with George Knapp back in the day. Oh no, On the Record, not Mystery Wire. On the Record, it was called. If you go,
have you heard the UFO stuff with it's John Lear, Bob Lazar, Gene Huff. They had a little UFO show, a little UFO radio show, and have you heard that? I forget what it's called.
Yeah, it might be the Billy Goodman's Happening show. I'm not sure if that's revealed on that one, but no, that was one of Bob's first big and long interviews. The other one was if you go to my channel on YouTube and you search for Bob Lazar inconsistencies. I have a whole video compilation of those types of things.
Well, this radio show that they were doing together, sometimes George Knapp would pop up on it, and this wasn't coast to coast. They were probably trying to jump on the coast to coast train because those interviews are so interesting. But there's so many mistakes that Lazar makes in there. Like they're talking at one point, John Lear's talking about aliens and this and that. And Lazar is like, I just don't see how any of you guys believe this stuff. This is so crazy. It's like, wait a minute, dude. You was the one that were supposed to, you're the one that's supposed to see all this stuff. So why would you be the one that's not believing? But there's a lot of stuff like that. What the heck? I can I've got it. I've got them saved on a playlist. I can send to you somehow.
Yeah, we're gonna keep that classified because I'd like to go and I'd like to recollect because I spent a lot of time going and collecting all those clips, and I made a playlist myself with all the timestamps, and then Corbell went through and systematically copyright struck every single video on that list. Man, I should have gone through and recorded all that because it's just like key evidence like that slips. So be careful with that and record it, make backup copies because like stuff disappears, man.
It does. In fact, I'm going to my computer to see if it's still on there because I think I have about 3 hours of all of them doing just really making a whole lot of mistakes.
Hey, Ryushin, before I let you on, I just want to know what just type in the private chat what you want to discuss, and when you join, there's a private chat on the StreamYard link. So join the StreamYard and just type in what you want to talk about and kind of what you want to bring on and bring to the conversation. If you have a question, I kind of want to know before, because people have been bombing the stream with some bad content and stuff on purpose. So I just want to make sure people are just on the same level with us.
What type of aliens?
Yeah, we're into like the science and technology side of this, man, and a lot of the reverse engineering tech and the nitty gritty.
Linda Moulton Howell recently, but that was last month. I got to get back to the metamaterials book.
Yes, the metamaterials is key.
Did you get those resistors down to Falcon Space? I saw you pick them up at like a Boston MIT.
I didn't actually get the resistors.
You didn't.
No, I'm kicking myself in the ass, dude. But I didn't really have the money, and I was like
$50. Shit.
All this, I know it was so cheap, but I didn't have the space for it. It was like such a big thing, and like I don't have the space for all those.
You're killing me, Smalls. You're killing me.
I know, dude. Those were like
that was a good find.
That was, you know what? I'm gonna get some money up this week. I'm doing 2 jobs, and then like next month I'm gonna go to
learn to like, hey, insert sponsorship link here. Like, what's our?
Yeah, I need to do more of that because
where's the hacksmith?
So I debunked the hydrogen car. I debunk all the Bob Lazar stuff in this video.
We got to network with some makers. I was watching the cool meeting this week was the Silicon Valley.
I don't like to be a debunker. I don't like to be a skeptic. It's not my thing. I'm more into the exploration of the science. But if stuff's science and legit and it don't work out, man, you can't like just keep telling people it's real or like selling them false dreams, man. It's just
so like on the metals, right? That's what the thumbnail was for this. So the metamaterials, that's zinc, bismuth, and magnesium, and then there's a ratio of the thickness of the magnesium. It's on the very outside. Then you have like
yes. Let's find that slide. So that was from
very thin slice. The material in there is flown. Everybody has got to understand that the complexity of the layering when they make it, it's not all those little sub layers are not in there. This is like a bet. I got a shiny silver coin on this one. But when they make it, it's much simpler, right? It's magnesium on the outside, 2 layers of zinc, and sandwiched between that is a very thin layer of magnesium. And then on the inside, you have your bismuth. And that's the bismuth is the
3 microns. That's a thin layer. Is the
I know, but what you're seeing, like, we pull up like a plasma streamer, like one of those plasma ribbon things where they, it's like, I don't know, 20,000 kV at some time.
What is it? Plasma ribbon stream.
Plasma ribbon stream. And then images. Where's a good one? Like, the purple one. Go back up, 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 up.
Yeah, why don't we do this, right? Let me go and look up.
That metal material you're looking at, it looks like something that Breaking Taps has been exploring.
Oh, I talked with him. I chatted with him. So I think that last one he did on the what are they? Highly entropic metal, something or other.
Yeah, highly entropic alloys.
Oh, there's a good burst. But so like you get a nice plasma stream, a ribbon arc, and you put it on like a high speed camera, and you get this striation in the plasma. If you study like it makes a really nice thumbnail. These are big whap booms.
This is a switch yard at a switch yard.
Right.
Switches
Well,
the.
so it's arcing, and if you could put that on high speed, you'd see this like striation in it. Now go flash over to the UFO material. When they make it, it's those sublayers aren't in there. That's an effect from like when they do a spacefold move, they go from point A to B with no time in between. Like you're in an airplane and the saucer's on your right wingtip, and then next thing you know, it's on the left wingtip, and it didn't like fly around you in a circle. It was just jumped over to the other wingtip. Like they've been known to do this. And that effect, it's like quantum tunneling, and the metal, the substriation in the metal sample is an after effect of that. It's a very chaotic, they've got it controlled, and we're dealing with like charge and parity CPT violations. But yeah, anyway, it's fun stuff. And when I talked with Lou Elizondo and also our buddy Jared in the APEC channel.
So CPT symmetry is this charge parity
and
time symmetry. So like
you're playing around with the electroweak force, and then you can kind of move through time, or I'm pretty sure they're loading their power source up to the like muons for a brief moment, and then that gives them the ability to go from point A to B with no time.
So do you think that when people are seeing a UFO on one side of the plane and the other side of the plane, is that it? I think that's kind of just how we perceive it.
No,
I've like there's something else going.
Witnesses in my past, my friend's deceased mom, she told me about it. And then I had a guy at my computer shop in Boulder, Colorado, and his dad was, it's just chain of causality, but his dad was an Air Force pilot during the 60s, and they said they would be down on patrol in the Gulf, off of Corpus Christi, whatnot. And then a saucer would come up and just play bingo in the middle of the formation. It would like
like a ping pong
right in the middle of the formation, and then pop in front of it, turn on all of the systems, like arm the missiles and all that, and then pop, disappear, or jump right back into the middle of the formation. That was anyway. That was after I saw flying saucers,
and I'm not saying that they're not existing or whatever. I'm just saying that if this thing is coming through another dimension, or it's going from in a worm, just shit that we don't understand. Maybe we're not seeing what's really happening. We're not.
Well, I've been around high level physics most of my life, and I've had a couple good aerospace mentors. So I'm read into the secret aerospace college, and all of this stuff you can reference in our APEC.
I've seen y'all's lab stuff, and yeah, that's.
I know. I live in New Mexico, and this is the heart of advanced weapons development. So, like, I've got 50 plus sightings in my under my belt, so to speak.
That's awesome.
I living in Albuquerque and watching the skies, and middle of the day you see these glowing formations show up, and you're like, oh, hey, strange. No, there's okay.
I didn't see nothing in now. I mean,
so I'm not disagreeing.
You were inside too much.
I need to go.
You gotta stay there. Move down to Albuquerque for a year.
Yeah. Huh?
Well, there's a lot of aerospace stuff going on. I got a cool artist friend or two. We can build you up a sweet studio. kind of liven up the show and have it. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd like to build like a tower on the side of the mountain up in Mount Sandia that has like a 360 view, and that way I can like have like an
just do
eye on
like
the sky.
Mm-hmm.
Shit will just happen when I'm live, and I'll be like, dude, look, have my telescope camera.
No, seriously, that's like
that's my dream. Is like something I want, something like that. What I really want to do is like, I've been looking at properties and stuff, man, but it's really hard to find a property because there's too many of these like house flipping shows and these house flipping businesses that like buy up all the good houses pre-market, and then they fix them up with absolute junk. It's like lipstick on a pig. Some of the contracting work that goes into these homes is just abominable, and they resell them for like, but pick them up for 100, 150,000 cash that they buy from these homeowners, and then they resell them for 300,000, like twice as much, but they literally only put 50,000 grand, 50 grand worth of work into them. It's just, oh my
Jeremy,
God.
Jeremy, just plan on buying some land and build something.
We got to buy something. We got to buy land, and we got to build our own project. We got to build our own laboratory.
On what you were saying about the Mecca, I've got a friend in the alternative energy scene that's basically
Tim
working
Pool
on that.
has been talking about Freedomistan, and he wanted me to come down there and build Freedomistan and build this whole section of it. But he I don't know, he flakes out. He's so distracted and so busy with so much other stuff that I can't.
Right.
I can't blame him like that. He forgets and like it just slips his mind.
Well, I want to say this guy is
every once in a while is
like
Ian's like, dude, my buddy that kid Jeremy, that came on your show that one time, he's a contractor.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Dude, yeah, we got to get back on there because those guys are well connected and they're well funded and stuff, and they could actually do something with it. He's got ambition and goals and ideas about it, and I'd love to help him with some of this stuff. Especially, we could build like a whole lab section, dude, because he could have a whole he wanted to have this whole paranormal show, and we could have like the lab function on it where we just, I can hear you.
Okay, I was gonna say this other guy's got like a couple 100,000 people listening to his radio shows on alternative energy. He's already got a bunch of land where he's at, but he's in Missouri.
Who's that?
He goes by Shaziz's Mad Science.
Tim Pool is this dude? If
you
can look up.
Jeremy, can I tell you the name of that radio show I was talking about earlier with Bob Lazar, John Lear, and Gene Huff on it? It's called Bob Lazar's UFO Line, and they got it's Three Stooges in the back behind it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
That sounds narcissistic. He used his own name to name it.
Yeah. Oh well, he's a narcissistic guy. I mean, of course, he was a.
Look at me,
dude.
Hey, these are from December 1995.
Wow. Infancy of the internet, man. That's something else I noticed too, by the way, just to point this out. The cam technology on computer technology, the point that it started reaching, it was about the point that the internet started exposing all of this information. So we now have a world where basically the technology that's available at these upper echelons, there's a version of it you can get your hands on as the average person, or you can at least get the equipment to build it and the information to build it now. So I think we're ending up with a situation now where before they didn't have the furnaces to replicate the glass, right? Using the analogy of people who didn't even have fire trying to, figure out how to reverse engineer glass bottles, to now we have SETI level reverse engineering. You know what I mean? Where the gentleman scientists, the people in their backyard science, can do a lot of this stuff on their own and bring together that information so they can basically collate it and try to figure out what's going on with it, and the results and whatnot. So, on the other hand, you were talking about quantum technology and whatnot, and using that for manipulating space and whatnot.
Yeah.
That sounds an awful lot. That sounds an awful lot like the 3-body problem. Have you read that book? The series that came from?
That's by the Chinese guy?
No. Three body problem. It's a sci-fi novel or series where basically these aliens know we exist.
Yeah.
And they're using quantum technology
and they
to basically manipulate. They're interfering with our scientists to basically give us false information on our results so that we won't develop technology before they get here to take our planet from us.
Right. They send that like teardrop thing to
Yes.
to take out all the ships and everything. Yeah. No, that's all. And then they have the
just
guys
by
that,
the oldest technology known
Well,
to
they might have
naval
have
space
control
failing.
of our government and people within our government. I like that theory because then that's how we're going to get through to the people in the government that are just dumb or not paying attention.
Hey, how hard would it be for you to manipulate the brain of somebody else if you have advanced enough computer technology and you can manipulate quantum entanglement technology?
Mm-hmm.
Right. If you can go into the molecule and change the molecular structure of anything you want, whenever you want, because they're using, it seems like entanglement. Wait, did you say that they're using entanglement?
Quantum
that's what
entanglement,
where one thing is the same on the other side of the universe, like they react with each other. I don't know.
They're tied together against a vast distance, the way two gears would be entangled together when their teeth touch.
Yeah, man, that's awesome.
You turn one, it turns the other. Which I think that's ultimately
from across
what
the universe
entanglement really is. It's you can see the equivalent of quantum entanglement whenever you look at these people who have magnet wheels where they have magnets attached to it, really good bearings, and they've got another wheel with more magnets on it that they can lock those two together, so when you spin one, the other one spins, and there's like 8-10 feet of distance between the two of them, but it's instantaneous.
That's so awesome.
Because of the lack of resistance, there's nothing to stop the magnetic cogging between the two, and atoms are so tiny and there's so little that interferes with them while they're whizzing around that if you can get too tangled up across the distance, everything in between them should have no effect. It should be able to reach right through that in order to basically manipulate the other one on the other side. So
yeah, sensors for gravitational waves. So you can build a sensor for a gravitational wave. Theoretically, you can use the same kind of thing reverse to build a transmitter, right? So if you can build a receiver, you can build a transmitter by reverse engineering it. So thank you, Nixus, for the $50 investment in progress. Appreciate that. Super chats are super appreciated here on this channel, and every little bit helps. If you look to donate a large amount, please get in touch with me personally, as I don't think I think they take a certain percentage unless you transfer it the right way. So yeah, we're always looking for more investments or anyone that can help fund our efforts. I don't get enough. But every little bit helps, and I do appreciate every bit that I've gotten and everyone that has helped. And I will give credit to anyone that donates and wants to get credit given to them. So
y'all need to make like a really cool lifter or something, like something that people can see. You can demonstrate it, and it does. And it like hovers. That would get people kind of excited about this stuff, because a lot of people don't know about those things. Even
better if it's a how-to, so they can build it on the other end. And
yeah,
then they can display.
Yeah, but they might electrocute themselves.
Peer review proof.
Yeah,
but that's the best way to prove something is through peer review proof.
We have to peer review. Yeah, peer review is what we're trying to search for, and we're essentially offering a peer review for the experimental physics community, because we're redoing a lot of history of anti-gravity research that's been done. So we go through and we have this rich documented history, which is hard to keep track of sometimes. But we have this whole history of everything that's been tried, and we're going and retrying all those things, except for the element 115, a stable isotope, which we still can't create. But once we create a stable isotope of element 115, we're definitely going to do that experiment.
Let's go over that element technium, Jeremiah. Oh, excuse me, Jeremy.
This one seems a little more within our grasp. So we're looking at ways to manufacture this type of material, a material that it mimics this exact sample that supposedly they had.
I'll say, what's the benefit that they're claiming of combining bismuth and magnesium together like that?
It's three. It's magnesium, zinc, and bismuth. Bismuth is on the inside, it's facing the power system. And then it's the outer magnesium, and there's this very thin layer, and that's what you ends up doing the tunneling, the submicron, the striation that you can see through it. The bismuth on the inside is acting like a selective ground, and they're playing around with the strong nuclear force instead of the electric field is a response to the power source and what they're doing. So there's a couple things going on within that metal, but
have you ever seen this diagram?
Gravity, how to put it? It's ground for what's going on within the metal, and then the layering between the thick magnesium and the thin magnesium is like a quarter wavelength waveguide, circular waveguide thing, and we need at least.
So this is what I think's going on. All right, dude. I think that it's a Bragg reflector. As I've said, this one right here. So it's the Bragg mirror. These layered materials act as a Bragg mirror, a Bragg deflector. That's the only thing in physics that I have to really compare it to that functional. And what you can do with the Bragg mirror, a Bragg reflector, is similar to this acoustics of the Chichen Itza pyramid, where it turns the single wave clap into a chirp, or a whole bunch of high frequency, rapid, sharp pulses.
Yeah, I've listened to you talk about this, and it's
or vice versa. It could take the opposite, so you could do the opposite effect, where you could take all these little tiny pulses and just build up a resonant thing in this chamber, so that when they all reflect back, they create this giant wave pulse, which could be used to create possibly nonlinearities in the vacuum structure, and along these beat frequencies, which might correspond to
a stable plasma mode, a stable field around the vehicle, and it's a spinning field. Like the one time I saw optical cloaking from underneath, it pinwheeled, and then there have been some good footage. Jason Verbelli shared it with me once. I should find it in my maybe it's in Facebook somewhere, but there's one out of like Southern Europe, and the vehicle was pretty low, and this is like the late 90s, and the guy had his camcorder, but you could see an oscillation underneath the vehicle until it decided to just go blink and disappear. So these, like the field, the structure within that metal is a quarter wavelength waveguide material.
Yes.
Frequency selective surface is another catchword in DoD speak. So frequency, what frequencies is it letting through? Because it's
a photonic band gap material too is another word for it.
It's reflecting other frequencies out of it, and part of that's generating the external field, and then I don't know. I mean, the gravity beam, isn't that kind of like the Podkletnov experiment that Mark's trying to build? I mean, so there's like element 115, like they're an interstellar species, so they've figured out a way of creating these beams. So they're like here on Earth, our particle colliders, they're just surrounded by a giant electromagnetic ring, so they can see the particle shower, but instead of like, if that Podkletnov experiment works, then you have like a rotating cathode and you create a focused beam. And then inside of that, you have your particle collision, except for you're slowing time down. So they're,
Metatron. I just want to mention a couple things. Sorry to cut you off, but Metatron said that the anti-gravity research was one of the lead physicists was Lewis Witten, Ed Witten's father.
Yep.
And Ed Witten was the same Ed Witten who formed string theory, right? So string theory is like been argued by Eric Weinstein. I think this is probably where Metatron you got this from. Eric Weinstein's done a lot of research into this invisible college. Bryce DeWitt, he talked about a number of these people who were involved with this. But yes, Ed Witten's father was involved with this, and then Ed Witten would later be, the guy who did string theory, which misled physics on Wild Goose Chase.
Right. I heard basically Witten created it in order to mislead academia and purposely create arguments.
Yes, but did Witten create? So let's look at this. Lewis Witten.
That makes a lot of sense.
Witten,
Hey, Jeremy,
created, or did aliens already have this? They already figured this out, and they're like, "This is the way to confuse them, and this is a way to like get them lost in the mathematics and the theory of all this nonsense."
Oh, it's a magician's trick. Like, look at
Jeremy.
this.
I got a roll, man. Thank you so much for letting me come on here, man. It's been real awesome.
Thank you, and I look forward to evidence for dark matter as well. That's another one that was this whole theory of NASA dark matter. What is dark matter? And this whole debate over dark matter and this galaxy rotation problem, man. And Steve, any more questions before you go, man? I don't want to.
No,
it's really hard to get a word in here sometimes. So.
But I'm a layman when it comes to this. I enjoy just listening to y'all talk about it, and maybe my contribution could be like breaking it down for dumb people who don't understand, really what y'all are talking about.
There's a lot of that needs to go on here, man, and we go on for hours here on this channel because there's so much information and it gets so in depth it's hard to break down. And I think that's my biggest problem is like, how do I go to WPRI to these people that are used to like these short snippet stories about this, dumbed down nonsense of their everyday life? And how do I really tell them the biggest story in the entire history of the planet? What I mean?
Yeah. That's I don't know, man. but anyway, man, just thanks so much. And
yes. Break it down for me, please. I try, man, and I try. It helps me to get someone to talk to, because sometimes I talk to myself, and I can get on a lot of different levels, and I like to get down to your level, man. So thank you for
coming. And I'm gonna get those radio shows to you somehow. I'll DM you on Twitter or something and send you links to them. Or can I link them in the chat or?
Yeah, drop them in the private chat, and I'll check them out, and they're saved for after the show. I can come back here and see them and stuff. And also, if you can, drop them in the private chat. I'll try to copy them into the description if I check them out and they're good. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Awesome.
Thank you for joining us,
man. Hey, thanks for having me, man.
So there's this whole galaxy rotation problem that they ran into with astronomy and cosmology, and they said, oh well, we have to have this dark matter that accounts for all this this galaxy rotation problem. And there's been all sorts of speculation and this whole dark matter chasing the dark matter down, and this theory of dark matter. And even Ken Griggs believed in the dark matter, that it was some advanced form of this that didn't interact. It was inert and didn't interact, and he could predict it with his theory. But I never really saw that whole thing. I tried to follow the Phoenix stuff. Ken Griggs came back one time for APEC and gave some presentation, and I hope that they're progressing with their work. And I'd like to know more about this Phoenix theory, because the Phoenix theory was really something super interesting at the time, and you won't find much on it anymore through searching and stuff. I have a video on it. There's a couple of videos on it you can check out. These ones: the quantum entanglement, the key to anti-gravity, and Phoenix theory. And this was back in 2017. right after TTSA had been announced that they were going to create a craft and start this company to reverse engineer anti-gravity technology. And that's when I said, wait, I've been researching this quite a while, and I'm going to start my own company. If TTSA is going to start a company and say that they're going to bring disclosure and they have the real secrets and they have all the insiders coming forward with the real information and stuff, I want to be part of this. Why wasn't I invited? And why I have very skeptical of what's going on, and just in case this doesn't turn out, and it is what a number of other people were saying, like Dark Journalist was what one guy followed, and when they came out, he was saying this is like obvious. There's like so much CIA experience on this team, it's ridiculous. And he pointed, there are people doing investigations into them and pointing out all the CIA connections and how it was related to U.S. Army psychological warfare operations with the Psi spies and the work that Stanford Research Institute did with Hal Puthoff and their lead scientists of TTSA back in the day, and all that information and stuff. We've been through all that on this channel for those of you who've been here all along, but it's a lot of information, a lot of technical stuff to cover to get into that. But I created this whole company called the Hover Brothers to compete with them, and I was working with this theoretical physicist named Ken Griggs, and he had this whole idea of this Phoenix theory. And Phoenix theory was this whole physics of exchange, the physics of entanglement networks and information exchanges was what Phoenix stood for. It was an acronym. Phoenix theory, not the band here, but there was an old article on hoverbrothers.com if you can find the old website and stuff. You could find it, and these old videos, of course, are still up, and they talk about the theory if you want to get into it. But he had this whole theory of quarks that based on these three dimensional 2-bit structures, of which combined create these 10 puzzle pieces, which formed all of these particles in larger networks. And that was his whole theory of particles, that they're based on these simple, what break down to Feynman diagrams. If you break down Feynman diagrams and the whole basis of quantum field theory, you get these three-way interactions, that everything's a series of these three-way interactions and can be built upon these three interactions of particles that go three ways. And there's mediator particles that go between, and it's all based on this group theory of standard model physics, which is the SU1 cross SU2 cross U1, I believe, unitary group, the standard model of particle physics, which is based on group theory and this Lie algebra and that stuff that they laid out in the Battelle-Rennes-Contreras I talked about earlier in 1967, which was like right around the time where like the CIA and all the intelligence agencies basically concluded that they had given up hope on reverse engineering any of these materials, and they closed Project Blue Book and sealed away those materials, I believe, for a number of years while they let our technology catch up. But now I believe that that record has been unsealed by certain forces who know about this in secret circles, and they're taking this much more seriously now, or at least they should, since the congressional hearings and these classified versions of whatever they're talking about behind the scenes in these meetings, which I think it has a lot to do with this kind of stuff. I don't know. I hope it does. I would hope it does, because if I can figure this out and I can get this deep as an amateur researcher with just a bachelor's degree in physics, who's spent his life in construction for the past 15 years, if I part-time, if I can figure this out in my spare time and my limited education and knowledge and resources, and I have some pretty good intelligence resources, I won't lie. I have some good scientists and some really, really smart people who talk to me and have reached out and really helped me out with a lot of great information and a lot of great sources and great intel dumps. And that's what I try to put together, is these massive intel dumps where it's like you get into ufology and you want to get into the science of it and you really want to have a conversation of it. I'm going to blow your physics professor's mind, and I'm going to teach him something. And I'm going to teach your U.S. Air Force uncle, who has 20 years experience on black projects, who's been working on, UFO related stuff for the government. I'm going to probably teach him one or two things that he might not have known about. And that's what my goal is to be that dude on the cutting edge of this stuff, and to show people like Bob Lazar, if you want to help out, give us good prices on materials. I don't want your UFO shirt, but I'll take some element 115 for a test. When you're ready to declassify and disclose that stuff, we're here with our labs willing to test and ready to disclose and declassify.
Come on, we got to get into that fuel piece. It's more complex. Let's get over the fact that it's being made off-world with, it's a civilization that can control gravity, so they're able to condense or slow down the decay rate and allow it to pile up in some sort of gravity furnace or gravity forge.
All right, but besides the element 115, Aiden, we can still get like high quality zinc or magnesium. Or
look at where it is in the vehicle within the reactor, right? You haven't had a good discussion on the field topology around the vehicle, right? So it's kind of like, from a distance, that saucer looks like a magnetic monopole. You have a north pole on the equator of it. The entire bottom of it is a north pole, or the electric field is negative. And then as it returns into the reactor, it comes down that central waveguide onto the dome. Like, what is the dome made of, right? It's because it's shielding the reactor. But then the waveguide comes down, and then that element 115 is this weird wedge shape, and there is a structure within it. He talks about how it looked to be like there was another lamination within it. You'd have to get out Paul Potter's book. There is at least one video of Bob talking about it publicly. But the substructure within that element 115. No, go down.
This is like the Paul Potter stuff.
I know, there, yeah. But see the UUP, the little stop, go back up. Down, scroll down, keep going. This stop here, it's the triangle. There's a circle in the triangle, and it says UUP. That's the element 115. Top row, screen right, next to there you go. So that's the shape of the wedge, but there's a striation within it. And because they layer the discs, and then it gets shaved
right
down.
It's a layered wedge, the layered wedges, and then it gets shaved down the specific machining method that Bob describes, right? What does that have to do with it?
And then at the tip of it is where the matter antimatter reaction is going, right? They have a proton stream going into this. Supposedly it's bending space-time around it, because that's what element 115 does. So you have the vortex already going, and then you're getting a controlled, you're shooting a proton into it at the very tip, and then down at the tip, this is where Mark doesn't understand. It's site-specific. So the matter antimatter reaction is at the very tip, and then the vehicle, you have the waveguide, the central waveguide, and the field is being created at the tip and then circulating out through the whole material via strong nuclear force pulses, and then the outer shell that is.
So where's the 3 gravity wave amplifier?
Yeah, right. What Mark and I are discussing within the lab is basically like the first field effect. It gives you inertial mass cancellation and basic buoyancy. Then if Lazar's,
it sounds to me like there's 2 different crafts. There's one that works on the element 115 reactor goes right down, and there's these 3 gravity amplifiers. Is that
right? So think about the Podkletnov experiment.
So it's all the same crafts, but
right. So but there's a couple different effects going on, and one is the reaction between the element 115 when it's has a little EVO spinning down at the very tip of it, and the waveguide, right? So the craft glow. All the ones that I've seen glow. So there's a plasma sheath around the vehicle. Like I want Bob to come out and like, what
I want
is
him to know what isotope it is and how we create it. Because like,
where's the P table thing? Hey, guy. Grenier gave out that really good. Let's see, I gotta like, yeah,
that'd be great. You know what I'm saying? You know, this would be awesome. I'd be like, all right, cool. I'm convinced. You know, you can show me and it works in the laboratory and we get propulsion and boom. I'm game.
here,
But
go to the
very skeptical, dude.
check out this ptable.com. Grenier talked about it in this is neat.
I think it's these bosonic lasers or these polariton lasers that are tuned to HFGWs, which are
high frequency gravity waves. Okay, following.
You know, so these high frequency gravitational wave generators, if we could produce these, we might be able to, if you could get the skin coatings of the craft. I think it's a bell that sonically resonated, so the photonic coupling occurs with the electromagnetic coupling of the with the resonances the spintronics are doing on the surface, and that it rings like a bell, like the whole saucer rings like a bell, and that these photons couple on the surface and create these entanglement structures, which basically make the craft radiate in these high frequency gravitational waves and look like an atom to the rest of the universe that's just radiating these waves, which can then be used to warp space-time if harnessed properly through xenic surface waves, maybe like Summerfield waves.
The second sound phenomenon, second sound physics, because the vehicles run cool. So surface wave, the magnons, spin wave. There you go. The fields spin around the vehicles. So there's a spinning resonance. The spin wave physics is very important as well. Or the magnon.
We're going to get Shrat. Maybe Shrat will join tonight, but we're going to get it. I'm going to get Shrat here on Thursday night. Trying to get him Thursday night. That's the goal. So,
well, he's down in Arizona. Let's see, what's his phone number?
Yeah, dude, you're right. You should do like the live stream and do the camera and jump on the live stream, dude.
I'm
gonna repost the link because we got some new people probably joining now.
I have his phone number. Do you have it? I don't want to live call him.
Dude, jump on and show your Wright-Patterson Air Force Base out your backyard. No, I wouldn't. We're gonna.
Well, I'll hit you
up after. I don't want to like give him. I don't want him catch him unprepared and stuff. And I know
he's
so
very professional.
We're gonna get him, and we'll bring him on. Yeah, I know. I need to be more professional too, man. It's just like I just get all this research and I get so excited about it, and I don't know how else to put it out there, man. Yeah, Charlie C's here, dude. Hey, check out Charlie C's channel for the Graviflyer experiments. This dude, I would love to have you jump on with us on the StreamYard link, Charlie, and talk about your Graviflyer experiments. Show us maybe like a 5 minute blooper reel if you could, man. 5-minute reel, that'd be great. And not like a blooper reel, but yeah, maybe if you have like a blooper reel of all the things you tried that didn't work and what not to do. It's good letting people know what not to do, what we've already tried, and that we're legit organic scientific researchers and not government disinformation agents trying to throw you off the trail. We're still willing to look at element 115, and I'm still open to it totally. I'm open to the science 100% if it can be shown, and I would love to be proven wrong and been like, oh my God, disclosure's here, and I was wrong. It wasn't just a CIA psyop and a covert operation to mislead the public as usual. That it was actually real disclosure. They were telling the truth for once. I will gladly concede that I was wrong in that case, but I don't think I will be.
Oh, listen to Bob Greenyear's presentations again. Think about, and then we've got to have a beer over at BJ's and Hawthorne, and I'll bring out one of my notebooks, but it's like the field topology, the fact that the vehicles are running cool. You have to think about the power source. It's when you're within the vehicle, the power source is the sense of time. All right. An Area 51 technician I talked with at ITT said you feel funny once you get inside of a vehicle. And then Bill Uhouse described that as well. So the element 115 is doing, we're not playing around with the strong nuclear force yet.
It's ecobismuth, right? It's the next one beneath bismuth on the periodic table. So that's what they say.
Yeah,
Bismuth's like this weird thing. It's the most. So there's a weird reason that they say like bismuth was used in these spintronic pieces of UFO debris, outlined by Hal Puthoff, that this 3 microns of bismuth are these waveguides because bismuth has the highest, fastest Larmor frequency.
It's
the highest
ground,
spin.
and it's acting as part of like the time shielding.
Yeah.
It is ground reference for the skin effect.
Jeremiah has weighed in. He says no need for 115. Sodium 22 is just fine.
Oh, that's a positron source. Come on.
Well, that's what he says, and it's the element 115 was doing. That's what Bob said it was doing in the diagram.
I put it up.
I've argued that proton conducting perovskites would work as well. So yeah, sodium 22. Oh, great. This is good. Good debates, dude. I love it.
So in the nuclear chemistry books at UNM, they are teaching about the island of stability. It's in like the senior year nuclear chemist coursework. So as I understand it, the island of stability is the heaviest thing that space-time will tolerate. And we got to look at that technium, like element 43. That is man-made. There are no naturally occurring isotopes of technium on the Earth's surface because it's too radioactive. It's everything that came down out of space during the formation of Earth.
You mean it's too unstable?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's at the low end.
Because something can be highly radioactive and still be extremely stable, but it's just not common because, the more radioactive, that means the more energy it's releasing. And you do that more unstable.
I see radioactivity as movement through space-time. I mean, I don't know. You just got to spend some time in the community. Where is it? TC 43, element 43. That is all man-made. It's not naturally occurring. So it's the opposite, like yin-yang theory. Like if the island of stability is
technetium,
yes.
Element 43.
So
another very interesting element.
Yep, and we've only had access to that since 1950 something.
Yeah, because they're making it artificially.
Yep.
It only occurs in very rare uranium ores or these other radioactive ores because it's the decay product. Yeah, very interesting.
So what is this? The island of instability. Of course, there's things that are lower that are, there's, deuterium, tritium are both radioactive, and so they're in motion. And then the protons are supposedly protons decay, or is it neutrons? I forget one side or the other.
Neutrons.
Neutrons decay and protons You know, that's a theoretical question around Los Alamos. Is like, what is the lifespan of a proton? Like, how old is the
It can be
universe?
stabilized too, though. So
Yeah. Anyway, so like element 115, it bends space-time around it. It creates a distortion. Mr. Lazar has that wedge buried somewhere. So if he were to be granted whistleblower status and like the FBI watchdogs that are hassling him were leashed for a bit, or whatever agency is doing it, like he should be able to go out to wherever he buried the fuel sample and then get his buddy Corbell, and then they go over to Washington D.C. and go, here, look, and then do the physics example of it bending light around it publicly.
jacket for Jeremy Corbell or Jeremy Walter or Jeremy Riss. Which one? Which Jeremy? There's a lot of Jeremys in here.
Kyle.
How about Kyle, man?
Yeah, Kyle's had too many Red Bulls today.
Jesus. All right, this is where I need to create a YouTube. This is where I need to create like the YouTube members only thing, and we need to end the broadcast and make it like members only, kind of like after hour and stuff. Because I need to start doing that after like 2 hours and 15 minutes of intense science talks and debates and deep dives. This is what we get into on this channel. We start speculating, and people like, oh, here's something I never heard of before. Now I have to go and because you can do like 2 hours of reading on Zenix surface waves and Summerfield waves, or the galaxy rotation problem that led to the prediction of dark matter, which still hasn't been experimentally verified.
Lambda cold dark matter, all of it has failed. Every single experiment.
Failed. String theory failed. Loop quantum gravity failed.
Cold neutrinos, meanwhile, do exist and seem to be collisionless.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're cold, they're not glowing. So I think that cold neutrino hypothesis kind of...
At least the standard model is not completely, like falling apart yet. It's
the electric universe, there's like the dust, the interstellar medium is not a vacuum, and there's large...
This is one of the most well-tested theories in theoretical physics. So, like, if you have, a way to break it, then this is important. So we need to really pay attention to that.
Just need a way to unify the lingo. So like a solariton is a polariton, is a magnon. Like
yeah. Well, it's interesting because these are called bosons. They're
who you calling a boson?
And
what's your vector?
Exactly. So, well, we need to familiarize the public terminology with these things and talk about them more in a fun way, and find ways to introduce these subjects to people in better ways. Because what was once called unidentified aerial phenomenon will someday be called quantum physics, I believe. I don't know. What do you think?
Field effect propulsion, tensor mechanics.
Yes. Advanced theoretical physics will explain all of this, I believe, and it can and will. And we just need to look beyond current models and current theories and start exploring our theoretical scientific horizons. Thank you all who have made this possible, and for everyone who contributes in this greatest endeavor of mankind. You guys are all legendary for taking part in this transition of humanity from type 0 to type 1. Thank you all. I'm going to end the broadcast, and please join the live stream behind the scenes. I'm going to post a link one more time for those of you who want to go off the record and talk. Let's do this.